Good evening, folks. Hopefully you are taking a break. It's halftime of this awful Thursday night game. Andy Dalton is hosing me by not completing any passes. So hopefully you guys aren't suffering the same fate. We're going to go through some optimal lineups or some personal lineups this week in DraftKings and FanDuel. I think you guys only have me tonight, but that's not a bad thing because what I'm going to do is actually try to share my screen here and show you guys my actual lineup in one of my DraftKings tournaments. And I'll show you a lineup I put together really quickly in FanDuel. And then from there, I'll probably show you a couple of lineups that you can have using the Optimizer tool on fantasyknuckleheads.com. As always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out on Twitter at MNMilano. Or if you're watching, as always, dive into the chat room and leave us some feedback. Hopefully I'll be able to answer any of your questions that you may have tonight. So without further waiting or stalling, let me share my screen out here. And we'll go to DraftKings. And as you can see, I've got a tournament lineup here, and I stacked Aaron Rodgers with Randall Cobb. So personally, I like to stack QB wide receiver in a tournament lineup, especially because the theory behind that is if you look at the wide receiver, if you think a wide receiver is really going to blow up, then obviously the quarterback throwing to him is going to have a pretty decent day himself. Since Cobb has Jordy Nelson opposite him, typically this season, Cobb and Jordy have done really well. So Rodgers has been a pretty good play more often than not. Coming off a bye week, going up against the Bears, I like this matchup a lot. So right off the bat, I put those two guys together, Rodgers and Cobb. And I said, okay, let me see who I can play with the rest of the way. I also said, all right, in my flex play, I want LaShawn McCoy. His price on DraftKings, $5,600 this week, is absurd, especially going up against either the dead last run defense in the league or second to last in the Panthers. I mean, that's a no-brainer play. So I said, okay, I'm putting it in my flex because heaven forbid something happened to McCoy. I can choose from not only a replacement running back, but I can choose from a wide receiver, tight end. So in your flex play, I always recommend you choose the last person playing on your lineup, whether it be Monday night, Sunday night, or whatever. So I've got LaShawn there in my flex play. My running backs are Forsett. Again, a great matchup in Tennessee for Forsett. They're also playing at home. His price is pretty good at $5,000 as well. Extreme value pick here, Bobby Rainey, going up against the Atlanta defense. Now, Atlanta coming off a bye, you could say, okay, maybe their defense put it together, but I'll believe it when I see it, right? So, of course, Atlanta's outside of the dome. I always downgrade every part of that team when they're outside of the dome. So I like Bobby Rainey this week, especially at 4,400. It allowed me to jump higher and put Rodgers and Cobb in there, as well as McCoy, right? So those three guys aren't vastly cheap, but Rainey at that price allows me to do that. Brandon Cooks, my wide receiver, again, full point PPR on DraftKings. I love Cooks on the inside. At home, his home and away splits, Cooks just looks so much better at home, getting a lot of targets there too. The San Francisco defense has been pretty good this year. Better than a lot of us expected, especially dealing with those injuries, dealing with the suspension of Aldon Smith. I think Cooks has really good potential this week. Again, PPR, if he can get you 6-7 catches right away, 6-7 points. Even if he doesn't get in the end zone, he can get you 12 to 16 points alone, just from his game, his catches and yards. So I like that a lot this week. Steve Smith, I'm worried about the Forsett Smith pairing here. So let's actually dive into this and say, okay, I don't want Steve Smith because I just realized that I have Forsett and Smith. So who can who can I grab here? I've got 6,200 available. I can throw Watkins in. He's got an injury. I can throw Alshon in. The Packers' pass defense has been pretty good this year. He's not a bad play at all, right? Alshon is huge, very long. So chances are I don't believe the Packers have anyone other than Devon House that can really match up with a big wide receiver. So my guess is House gets Jeffrey and Tramon Williams gets Brandon Marshall. So we'll see how that plays out. Mike Evans, Vincent Jackson. I like Rainey over both of them. Brandon Marshall, like I said, same thing as Alshon. Percy, I like this week. We spoke about him on Tuesday. Fitzgerald, spoke about him a little bit as well. You know what? For the hell of it, let's just throw Brandon Marshall in there. So now I've got Marshall. So this is, again, my lineup looking pretty good so far, in my opinion. Of course, we always think they look good. Heath Miller going up against the Jets. The Jets suck against the tight ends this year. So figure Big Ben on a roll. Going to have to hit somebody other than Antonio Brown on a few plays. So hopefully Heath Miller's that guy. And I love the Ravens. I like to stack running back defense as well sometimes, with the thought that, okay, if Forsett can get 20-plus carries, 100-plus yards, that offense is going to be on the field for a good amount of time. And hopefully the Tennessee has to throw the ball. And with Mettenberger throwing the ball, hopefully, you can get a pick, maybe even a pick six if you're lucky. So that's it for my DraftKings lineup right there. I'll submit that, and we're good. Now, that's my NBA entry. That did not win me any money, so let's stop looking at that. So there's my DraftKings lineup for this week for now. So let's actually screen share that back out. And let me show you what I have here in my FanDuel lineup for the week. I put this together right before the show started. So this was really quickly me going top to bottom and saying, okay, let's throw some value in here. As I was just mentioning with Heath Miller, you got Big Ben, you got Antonio Brown. I mean, I think they're both gonna be majority play this week, but for fun's sake, let's just put them both in this lineup and see how we can do, right? So stuck those two in there, stayed with Forsett. Again, I like the matchup this week. He's the clear number one over there. A great value for that money. Ronnie Hillman, also like him this week. I mean, you got to like everybody on the Broncos almost every week. But Hillman going against, I think Oakland's run defense is worse than their pass. So I'm expecting Hillman to have a pretty good day, whether it's just running or also catching the ball out of the backfield. But at the end of the day, Hillman at least gets you probably 80 to 120 yards total, and at least get you one touchdown. So I love him this week as well. Kelvin Benjamin, threw him in there because look at what DeAndre Hopkins did. Look at what Larry Fitzgerald did to the Eagles and John Brown. I mean, the past couple weeks, Philly's just been giving up deep touchdown passes, and that's kind of what Kelvin's game is. It's, let Cam throw the ball. He's erratic as it is, and Kelvin's the guy that's going to come down with it every time. So 6,700 for Kelvin. It's not a bad pick, right? He hasn't gotten in the end zone every game this year, but I think he gets in this week, and I like him a lot, especially at 6,700. Justin Hunter is my wild card in this lineup here. I mentioned last week that he was a pretty good punt play because of the relationship he had with Zach Mettenberger in the preseason. Hunter ended up getting in the end zone. Didn't have a huge day by any means, but he got in the end zone to save your week and gave you pretty good value for whatever price he was at last week. I think he was bare minimum. He was either 45 or 4,700 last week in FanDuel. Very, very cheap. Barely went up this week, so why not? If Jimmy Smith is out again, we saw what Roethlisberger did to Baltimore's secondary. Not that Mettenberger's going to do that, but if he's going to throw a touchdown, he's probably going to look Hunter's way. So I like Hunter a lot this week as well. Martellus Bennett, the Packers suck against the tight ends. That's all you have to know about that. And then Graham Gano, just because I Kicker, I hardly throw any thought into ever because it's very tough to predict how a kicker's actually going to do, right? You can't predict that Vinatieri is going to get you 19 points on a Monday night, right? You just rarely predict it. So I put very little thought into it. Just grab somebody and go. Cardinals, I put a little bit more thought into it recently because at the beginning of the season, I kind of said, okay, let me put little thought and see what happens. And I just kind of went with like the cheapest lineup and didn't really think about, okay, we've got a rookie quarterback going up against whoever, right? Now I put some thought into it and say, okay, I'd rather spend the $300 or $400 for the chance at getting a defensive touchdown because it just makes sense. So Arizona at home against Austin Davis, I like them a lot. Austin Davis has definitely been better than a lot of us expected, but so has Arizona's pass defense. So I think they're going to be able to get to Austin Davis. They're going to be able to pick him off. He's not immune to that. He can have a pretty decent first quarter like he did the past couple of weeks and then just downhill from there. So that's pretty much what I'm expecting again. So again, there's my lineup for a tournament in FanDuel. So from here, why don't we go fantasyknuckleheads.com and let's take a look at the optimizers. So I'm logged in. Let's go to FanDuel since we just did FanDuel. And to be honest here, what we're looking at is really focused on some score predictions, right? So what Kurt does here is averages score predictions from several different sites and puts them into his tool and provides them to you to show you here's what you could have based on the predicted points, right? So let's just put that into perspective. I'm not going to lock anybody in. I'm not going to remove anybody, and I'm going to say of all the people that Kurt put in, here's my best lineup, and that includes a Roethlisberger Antonio Brown pairing, right? Like we had before. Ellington and Jeremy Hill at running back. Let's say now this is where you can the tool actually comes into really comes into handy because you can take him out and say, you know what, Jeremy Hill's playing tonight. I obviously can't play him. Let's recalculate that. Okay, so we've got Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, Heath Miller, Martavis Bryant. Okay, so you've got everybody going up against the Jets, right? So that's one sneaky thing with this tool that you have to keep an eye out for is it may provide you with several people from the same team because look at the matchup. Everybody on Pittsburgh is projected to do really well this week. So it's going to give you an optimal lineup based on those projections. Now, me personally, I like the projections, but I'm going to say I don't want to play anybody other than Antonio Brown on the Steelers this week. So let's remove them and let's see what happens to it now. Okay, if I remove those other guys, it now says, all right, Ben's still your best bet at quarterback. Ellington and Hillman, your best bet at running back. Now Michael Rivera fits best into my tight end spot. Julio Jones, Percy Harvin, and Torrey Smith. So notice it took, because I didn't lock him in, it took Antonio Brown out and instead spread that money elsewhere. So I could go after both Percy and Julio as opposed to saying, give me, make me go down to a Martavis Bryant level when I'm looking at Antonio Brown. So it's a great tool. This is a great lineup. You're projected to get 139 points from this lineup alone. Very good possibility that happens, but let's just try to create one more. Now, I'll also give you a caveat. I'm going to create a lineup that I think is for 50-50 only. I think this tool is best for 50-50s, double ups, triple ups, those type of contests because it, again, goes after projected points. It tries to give you the folks with the highest confidence of scoring points, not to get, and we throw some punt plays in here, but not a lot. So let's be honest, it's not going to give you, a Travis Benjamin. It's not going to give you usually Marcus Wheaton, right? These guys who are hit or miss, high or low, they're not going to be in here very often. Quite rarely will they be in here. So again, use this for double ups, triple ups, something that you need a high level of confidence that these guys are really going to score. So let's say, again, I like Aaron Rodgers. Let's stick with him. And let's say, okay, if I want to play Aaron Rodgers, who's going to be the rest of my lineup? Well, Rodgers is up there. Ellington and Hillman still. Rivera, Harvin and Decker, you got to be kidding me. So let's get rid of here. I like Harvin over Decker. We talked about him a bit. And Torrey Smith, I actually don't like this week, so let's take him out as well. So what do we got? Rodgers, Ellington, Hillman, Rivera, Kelvin Benjamin, Harvin, Kenny Britt, Mason Crosby, and the Denver defense. So notice how it actually gave me the running back defense stack that I like. It keeps me with Aaron Rodgers. It also keeps me without all of the players that I've removed before. So, again, there's your potential lineup for a 50-50. Great thing is if you, let's put all these players back in and just say, you know what? I really think so-and-so is going to do great this week. I really think that Demaryius Thomas is going to have a hell of a week. Well, let's calculate and say, well, who else is out there? What's my lineup going to look like with just Demaryius Thomas? So here you go. Notice, again, you see a lot of the same people because it's looking for the highest point value that it can provide you. And, again, Ellington picked Ellington. Roethlisberger predicted to have a high points this week because of their matchups. Their matchups are very, very favorable. So go after the tool. Take a look at it, have fun with it, pick guys yourself that you really like and lock them in and then see what else is out there and let the tool make you some money. I know Kurt's made a lot of money off of this tool already. I know a few people that have as well. So join us, sign up for the tool. You get a free trial and just knock it out, man. Go in, enter a couple of 50-50 lineups and just knock it out. Same thing on DraftKings, right? I won't go through everything on DraftKings because we've done it before. I also provided you your value picks. I provided you my own lineup in a tournament. So go ahead, sign up for the tool, pick someone that you have a high confidence level in, and lock them in and load your lineup. Get some view of someone who's really, of people you may not think of. And did you see how quickly it loaded as well? I mean, it takes me sometimes an hour to put together a couple of lineups. This thing does it in seconds. So that's my lineup plug for the week. No longer have to hear me brag about it or try to sell you on it, but I think it basically speaks for itself. And if you think or talk to Kurt, the results speak for themselves as well with the money that he's made off of the site for sure. Let's see. I did have some questions on Twitter. So what I want to do is go to those questions. And let's see who we've got out here. A couple people said we've got Greg. Greg asked, nope, sorry, this is Jared. Jared asked, Macklin this week with Sanchez. Yes, please. So here's my thinking on that. I think Macklin is going to blow up. That Carolina defense absolutely stinks. So Macklin, a very high pick this week. He's priced at it, very high in both leagues. Sanchez is a high risk because you know what he does. He turns the ball over. He's surrounded by a lot of weapons here, though. He's surrounded by McCoy, Ertz at tight end, Sproles, Macklin. He's got a lot of weapons. So I think he can use them. I think that Chip Kelly will use them, and he'll try to get Sanchez to get the ball out of his hands quickly so that they can't pressure him and he can't be, on the run, throwing stupid picks like he normally does. It's a good play this week, especially at home, prime time. Philly gets up for prime time. The whole town seems to. So I like Sanchez and Macklin as a pairing this week, but to be honest, I don't think it's contrarian. I think it's actually going to be a majority of play. I think a lot of people are going to have exposure to it because of the matchup, because of how cheap Sanchez is, and how much that allows you to play at the other positions. So, again, I like it. I like the pick this week, but it's going to be tough for me to say make that your only pick. It's I don't know how else to put it. It's a good play if you have multiple lineups, or a bunch of exposure, or you want some exposure to him. That's what I'm talking about. I want some exposure to him, but not all. I don't want to be 100% in on Mark Sanchez ever. Let's see now. Devin asks, he gives me a lineup. So let's say here, he's going with Sanchez, McCoy, Ellington, Megatron, Brandon Marshall, Kelvin Benjamin, Donnell, Bryant, and the Steelers D. Not bad. He asks, is it bad to have Sanchez and McCoy together? Going up against one of the worst defenses in the league, no, it's not bad. It's not always recommended to have quarterback running back pairing because it's very difficult to get a running back who's going to put up take Arian Foster. He can put up 150 yards total, 2 touchdowns, but what's Ryan Fitzpatrick give you? Maybe 200 yards and 1 touchdown if you're lucky. So having those two pairings together, it's not always great because you do have, run versus pass. You're really rooting for their entire offense to click. And while it's possible, especially this week, there's just never a lot of confidence, right? It's probably not very good covariance, as Johnny B would say. So I would rather you do a Sanchez and get Macklin in there. Bring Brandon Marshall down or Larry Donnell down. Maybe change Donnell in there for Michael Rivera, something like that, and substitute someone in for McCoy. If you really want to play Sanchez, right? Or if you really want to play Sanchez. If you'd rather play Macklin, then obviously switch Sanchez out for somebody else. But that's my advice there. I wouldn't do the Sanchez McCoy pairing myself. Let's see. We have any more? We had another question on Macklin earlier this week. I think we answered this on Tuesday, but let's say it again. What are your thoughts on Forsett, Wheaton, Michael Rivera, Steelers D? So the Steelers D versus the Jets, I like it, especially with Michael Vick as the quarterback. You can almost always count on a turnover if that's going to be the case. Forsett, I showed you my lineups. I like him a lot. Wheaton, I'm iffy on. I think if I'm owning a Steelers receiver other than Antonio Brown, I'd rather have Martavis Bryant over Marcus Wheaton. Bryant has proven to be a reliable target for Big Ben. Wheaton, very speedy, very quick. He can do the job, but I think Bryant has already proven he can do it just as good, if not better. I believe that was it. Let's see. Greg actually asked, who are your sneaky tournament pairings, quarterback and wide receiver, this week? So sneaky pairings would have been Sanchez and Macklin. But like I said, I think a lot of people are going to have some exposure to them. I don't think they're going to be, 70% owned, but they'll probably, that pairing will probably be 20% owned, I'm imagining. There's going to be a lot of people going after them. Let's take a look here then at other guys. Obviously, I showed you guys I liked Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb. Peyton Manning and Demaryius Thomas, I love. Someone interesting that I know Alex was all about is Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. Now he loves both of them, owns both of them in regular fantasy leagues as well. So I don't know if it's emotions getting in the way, but I really don't believe in them when they're taken out of the dome they never play the same, right? So Julio's kind of matchup proof. He does really well regardless of the scenario, but Matt Ryan not so much. The only reason I think I would say to give them a shot this week is both of them are relatively cheap, especially on DraftKings, and coming off a bye, you'd hope that they prepared for this outdoor game at Tampa Bay, number one. Number two, coming off a bye against Tampa Bay, never a bad thing, especially for a wide receiver and quarterback combination. So Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, or Matt Ryan, Roddy White, either one I like. I maybe even lean towards Roddy because now that Lovie Smith has Major Wright in there instead of Mark Barron, I think he's going to be able to run a little bit more of his defense, and you're going to see the secondary really start to improve over this second half of the year. Not going to be one of the best in the league yet, by any means, but I think they're going to improve over when Mark Barron was there. So just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Let's see. Oh, we got some questions in the chat room here. Jason says Rodgers had the hamstring strain 2 weeks ago. Absolutely agree. He had the hamstring strain 2 weeks ago, and that's what lost them the game, essentially. But, big but here, the coach, Mike McCarthy, came out and said Rodgers was pretty much 100%. So that he's been practicing like normal. The bye week was perfect for what they needed. So I'd actually pay more attention to the Packers' offensive line. Both of their offensive guards did not practice today, but both of them say that they should play Sunday. So big question. I'd pay more attention to the offensive line this weekend. Keep your ears open for that as to whether or not Josh Sitton and TJ Lang play. If they don't play, get Rodgers out of your lineup because they're going to run up those, as John Gruden likes to call it, the double-A gap blitz. They're just going to be destroyed on those two guards all night long. So definitely remove them if that's the case. But if both play, they're both top 10 in the league in terms of the offensive guard position. So if they both play, I love Aaron Rodgers. Keep him in there. Let's see. Greg asks, who's the big tourney sleeper this week? Perhaps a wide receiver or running back who might have a monster game that will get very little exposure. I mentioned earlier Bobby Rainey as a running back who's $4,400, very cheap, and going up against an Atlanta defense that's been porous against the run all year. I like him a lot. He's not, again, I don't know if he's going to be your contrarian play because a lot of people are really looking for that value pick now. A lot of people are saying, okay, give me Bobby Rainey at 4,400 so I can go out and grab, a Randall Cobb at 7,600. Either way, Bobby Rainey catches passes out of the backfield. They run him like a true number one when they did it last week. Just look at last week. He had plenty of touches. In the second half, I don't know if he carried much. I think he may have tweaked something, but he still got you a pretty good game with what he gave you in the first half. That can only improve when he's going against a terrible defense like the Falcons' run defense. At wide receiver, I like Kelvin a lot. I think if you're looking for, in particular, someone that's going to have a monster game with very little exposure. Let's see. I'm just going to go through the list of receivers here. I think Larry Fitzgerald or Michael Floyd, as much as I don't want to say it. You guys know I'm not a Michael Floyd fan, but either one of them could put up good points against that St. Louis defense. We saw Larry Fitzgerald have the game against the Eagles. John Brown as well. I think Fitzgerald will probably be minority owned this week, and he may be the one to blow up. Mike Evans, same thing there. He's got a great matchup. Just scrolling through these people here. Let's see who else. Someone interesting to me is actually Percy Harvin. Again, we mentioned him on Tuesday. With Michael Vick at quarterback, Percy's going to get a lot of the targets, a lot of the looks. Hopefully, they start to use him out of the backfield, right? I've always said that he's so shifty. The best way to use him is sweeps, end arounds, give him wide receiver screens, give him carries out of the backfield, give him the ball in space and let him do work. If they can do that this week, or if they continue to do that, because they gave him a lot of looks last week, he's a great value this week as well. I think he can put it together this week as well. I know I may be taking advantage of Alex not being here because he'd disagree with me fully, but I actually think he has Percy in the lineup this week, so you can hold him to that next week. Let's see. Jason threw a lineup in here. Let's take a look at it. Matt Ryan, Marshawn Lynch, LaShawn McCoy, Julio Jones. So there's the Matt and Julio pairing I talked about. Brandon Marshall, Emmanuel Sanders, Michael Rivera, Kelvin Benjamin. Dude, your lineup is beautiful. Holy cow, I like it. I don't really think you have a weak point. I think Michael Rivera is your only weak point there, but he's your value tight end. Caught 2 touchdowns last week. Derek Carr is going to have to throw this week, so I'll answer your question below there. My thoughts on Derek Carr is that he's going to have to throw to keep up. We all know the Broncos put up points. They're going to do it against Oakland. It's just going to happen. Carr's going to have to throw the ball to keep up. He can't rely on their running game for anything. So Carr's going to have to throw. Who better to throw to than Rivera? It's always said that a rookie QB is security blanket tight end. So I like, he may be your biggest question mark there just because he's unproven at this point, but everybody else is proven and it's just silly. I mean, that's yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of speechless because now I'm thinking back in my head, maybe I want some exposure to Derek Carr. Maybe I can count on some garbage time points for that. So thank you for that, Jason. I might actually throw a quick lineup together and put Derek Carr in there. Greg asks, Russell Wilson versus NYG at home. No Prince and the Giants looking awful. You're absolutely right. They have no Prince. DRC has looked pretty bad the past few weeks. I think he's still battling a couple injuries, actually. And I believe they just lost Zach Bowman as well, or at least he was injured in practice earlier in the week. But, and a big but here, the Seahawks passing game has been terrible since Harvin left, right? Russell Wilson put up a ton of points a couple weeks in a row because he ran the ball, not really because he threw the ball. Against the Rams, he had, I think, 300-plus yards, so he did throw the ball quite a bit, but they were down 2 touchdowns. So he had to throw, or if not more, he had to throw the ball in the second half to keep up that week. So you can't count on him throwing the ball all that much because I don't see them trailing in this game. A lot of people hopped on the Russell Wilson bandwagon the past couple of weeks, and they got burned by it, right? I mean, they've got Doug Baldwin, who's half proven, and other than that, they got nobody at wide receiver. They got nobody at tight end. I'd personally stay away from Russell Wilson. I think they're going to focus on Marshawn Lynch. Wilson may have a decent game, 200 yards passing and a touchdown, 2 touchdowns. But he's not going to get you, 80 yards on the ground or 100 yards on the ground like he did those 2 weeks in a row. So I personally will not have any exposure to him this week. I think that is it for tonight, guys. I appreciate you all tuning in. Again, if you guys have questions, hit me up at MN Milano on Twitter. You got at Alex Hanowitz as well. Be sure to visit fantasyknuckleheads.com. Read all of our DFS content there. Hit up the optimizer links that are in the notes. And thank you guys very much for tuning in. Appreciate it. Good night, guys. Good luck this weekend, and we'll catch you next time.